Our next wonderful speaker is David Hilditch. David is from Scotland.
Yep.
Have you come all the way from Scotland?
Yeah, I came down yesterday.
He came all the way from Scotland. That's amazing.
It's another country.
I think so. So David's talk is on the screen behind me. So that's the title of his talk, Scaling WooCommerce to 1 million products on a basic server. And a little background about David. He is a performance and scalability expert, and he's the founder of Affiliate Web Designers, which is a web design agency helping customers build value from their websites, increase their traffic, and connect with their customers. He built the high performance. We were talking about this yesterday. It's really interesting. You should talk to David if you get a chance. He used to work for Skyscanner, which I'm sure we've all used Skyscanner before because it's an amazing kind of service. And I've lost David on my screen. He is. David, so he built the browse view thing. Is that technically correct?
Yeah,
the browse
right.
view
so
thing?
If you search from Edinburgh to anywhere, and it shows you all the cheapest countries to fly to, then they actually asked me how to do this in an interview. And so I told them the 3 different ways to do it, and why the 2 other ways were really slow. And they're like, oh, that's the one that we are doing. So,
There we go.
They hired me based on that.
Exactly, Skyscanner, that's cool. And he also built, again, which we were talking about this yesterday, he built a product called the Multilingualizer, which is a really cool tool which helps your website be multilingual, which is something that we're very passionate about at WordPress because we've got the Polyglots team. Yay! Now I'm going to jump off stage. Please welcome David to the stage.
Thank you. Thanks, Anna, for that awesome introduction. So the multilingualizer, though, it's not a WordPress thing, so polyglot, don't get worried about that. But yeah, I did come down from Scotland. I'm sweating a bit, but it's not because I'm nervous. It's just because it's so hot here compared to where I come from. But yeah, so I'm going to talk about scaling WooCommerce to 1 million products. This wasn't something that I really intended to do, but I've got some clients that had a lot of problems with different developers that had been telling them it wasn't possible to make WordPress or WooCommerce fast. So they hired me to fix the problem. Okay, so just a little bit of background. I mean, probably a lot of you know these kind of stats, but 25% of websites now roughly using WordPress. Phenomenal stat here that about 31% of stores are using WooCommerce. That's, if you looked at the transactional volume, it'd probably be a lot less, but it's still a nice big figure. The best thing about WooCommerce is that you get a lot of functionality out of the box. You get good basket technology, you get all the payment gateways, all that kind of stuff. So it's getting used a lot. But my mission is really to change the impression that seems to be out there that WooCommerce doesn't scale, because it can scale. Okay, so the scaling problem, right? I mean, this is Windows, obviously, picture, but if you've got a Windows computer and if your CPU's ever been maxed out like this, you know that everything else that you try to do in your computer slows to a crawl. This is what happens when you have more than 10,000 products in WooCommerce on your Linux server. Basically, what is happening is there's if I don't want to get too technical about it, I can do that in the Q&A, but there's something called table scans that are happening, and it makes all of the products in your database are getting read for the shop page. Now, there's a lot of people that would solve this problem with caching. Caching the page is a good idea. WP Rocket or W3 Total Cache is good. But the problem is that if you have a lot of different facets, you can't cache everything. That's one of the problems. But then also, if you've got Google SEO, if you've got the Google robot coming to index your site, it doesn't like slow sites. So it's a major thing that you really want to fix. Yeah, caching is one solution, but it's not going to solve everything. You really want to make it fast. So in a demo site that I made, it had about 55,000 products in it. And with vanilla WooCommerce and the layered nav widgets on the left and the price filter widget, /shop took 65 seconds to load. Okay, and that's basically, it's a decent server. It was a DigitalOcean server, one of my server stacks that I built. But 65 seconds is way too long. I mean, you can prime the cache, but you know, it's really bad. And so I will talk about the ways that you can solve this. It's actually not that complicated, and it can be applied to other things other than WooCommerce. I've already applied it to custom post types. I'll show you a little video of that in a minute. But yeah, so it's most of the problems are because of the table scans that are happening. So you have to write the code. The database queries have to be written in a way that makes it possible to use the database index, and then you have to have the right indexes in place. There's another problem as well, like the recently viewed widget, recently viewed products widget on the left-hand side. It should really use Ajax so that you can then cache that page. You don't want to be caching somebody else's recently viewed products. So. Oh, I have a little video here. It's a couple of my client sites. I'll just have to move that over here. There's my light scan. Okay, so this, oh dear. This site is one of the client that actually sponsored this work that I've been doing, the WP Intense plugin. But they're based in America. So before I start it, I will give a caveat because you'll see that the images load slightly slowly. But they're using Amazon S3 for that, and they're going to change that. So, and they're based in America, so it's a little bit further away. You'll see the performance, the real performance in the second one, which is a London-based server. Okay, so you see I'm just going to click through some of these. You get an idea. It's kind of difficult to see, actually, but you see there's like 20,000 products in some of these categories, 10,000 products. I mean, this is without caching, right? So just clicking through the pages, everything loads as quickly as you'd like. Like I said, the images are a little bit slow to load because of Amazon S3. But you see the idea. They have a whole bunch of different facets. They're selling furniture, different kinds of furniture over in LA. But they have a whole bunch of different facets, so it's impossible to cache all of that. But you get an idea for the speed. So with these guys, we actually increased the number of products. We had to fake it because they didn't have 1 million products, but we put the server up. We basically copied all of the products and loaded the database up to 1 million products so that we could actually test this out. And the great thing is when you're using indexes, you don't get performance slowdown. If you're getting table scans, then it'll slow down more and more and more the more products you have. So yeah, this is the second site. This is Homes Abroad. They came to me. They'd spent a lot of money on other developers trying to get this problem fixed. It's custom post types, so they've got lots of. You'll see. I'll open up the search options in a little bit. You see all the different kinds of facets they have as well. Same kind of problem. You can't cache everything, but you see the kind of speed you're getting there, right? 26,000 in that result. But it's a shame I don't actually have a little button that shows you when I'm clicking, but you'll see the kind of speed that you get. So this is using the same techniques. This isn't WooCommerce, this is custom post types, but the same exact techniques you can use to solve performance. Hey, all right, so like I said, right, the table scan is the main thing, and it's actually fairly trivial how to fix this. I mean, if anybody wants to contact me and get a bit more information about it, I'm actually running a new blog, wpintense.com. I also have affiliate web designers, but WP Intense is more focused on this performance-related stuff. But also you want a good server stack. So I know there's some WP Engine guys in the house. I really like you guys, you're cool. But I use DigitalOcean. I like to have the control. There's other stuff I like to install in there. And I'll cover what's in the server stack in a little bit. Yeah, there's that. There's also, there are some plugins out there they're even worse than table scans. So they'll do a table scan, they'll grab all the products, and then they'll actually process all of these products in PHP, which if any of your coders, you should know that that's just, it's asking for a disaster. And then the cache busting plugins, that's the stuff like the recently viewed widgets. You basically want to make sure that every page can be cached because that lets you then scale. Yeah, so I also help these guys out. I mean, it's using similar techniques again. Data Feeder, they're a pretty big company. WP All Import, you're probably more likely to have heard of. But their current plugin doesn't have my performance boosts in it, but they've basically currently got me hired to fix all the problems. So before I did my optimizations, it was like something like about 50,000 products were getting loaded in 24 hours, and now it's 1.2 million in 24 hours. And the good thing is, if you're stopping the table scans, it means that you're not maxing out the CPU and the disk on your server, so everything feels fresher, everything's lighter, everything's faster. But these, I mean, if you want to build a big store with 1 million products, then you need a fast way of getting in. And the way I got in touch with these guys, the WPL import, it was the LA guys when we were trying to load the products in. It was just taking forever because we were loading in these fake products, 1 million products. And so I optimized a few things for them and just sent the code over to them for free. And then off the back of that, obviously they fell in love with me and they decided to get in touch and hire me. Yeah, so the server stack. I really love DigitalOcean. I love the fact you can make a server in 55 seconds. I love the level of control. I love you can create snapshots and transfer them to your customers. But the server stack I'm using is Cloudflare on the front, so you can get a free CDN, varnish on your server that does page caching as well. Nginx, if you're using Cloudflare, well, I also have a thing called fail to ban that some of you might know about. It basically prevents all the massive bot attacks that WordPress suffers from. But if you're using fail to ban with Cloudflare, then it's important that you have to rebuild Nginx to pass through the originator IP address. It's a little bit technical, but otherwise, what ends up happening is you end up banning all the Cloudflare servers. And all right, okay. Yeah, so, but at the top you have Cloudflare, then you have Varnish underneath, and then you have Nginx serving up your web pages with that little rebuild that I was talking about. Mostly I'm using PHP 7 now. For the last year I was using HHVM. It was really nice and fast, but PHP 7's about as fast and it's got a lower memory footprint, so you get more scalability. And with Nginx you can set up, so if there's a server 500 error, you can make it fall back to PHP 5.6. So if there are any incompatibilities, then it falls back to that and keeps using it. Also, PerconaDB instead of MySQL, it's about twice as fast, 100% compatible. You could also use MariaDB, it's also good. I like PerconaDB because of the performance analysis stuff that you get with it. There's a PT query digest toolkit thing. So if you run the query log, you can find out all the queries that are not using indexes, and then you just get a little summary of where you have to go and fix the problems. Also, DigitalOcean use solid-state disks, which makes a big difference. So going further than 1 million products, this is a more complicated one. There's actually a simpler interim solution. I mean, one of the major problems if you're loading up a big store like that is the actual loading of the products is going to be using up resources. Like I said, I mean, I optimized WPL import, so that's less of an issue. But before you get to this stage, you could just have one server dedicated to importing the products and then replicate that data to your client-facing server. But if you want to go further, then basically using the MySQL replication stuff really works quite nicely. It's sort of a similar thing to how we did it at Skyscanner. We sort of rebuilt SQL Server replication to replicate from the master database, multiple master databases that were processing all the flight prices, and then they'd send them out to these slaves that would then serve up all the web traffic stuff. Yeah, so, I mean, one of my missions today is really just to get the information out there, just get the message out there that WordPress can scale, not just WooCommerce. WooCommerce have proven it can scale, but WordPress also can scale. These are some really useful tools. If you're a developer, Query Monitor is a really great plugin. That's this little picture here. Shows you how many rows are getting pulled back from the database. It shows, and if you see like all of your products getting pulled back, then you know you've got a problem there. You need to go and look at that function, fix it. So it's really good. The slow query log, basically it's a little setting in MySQL. Like I said, Percona is 100% compatible with MySQL, so you just change a setting in the my.cnf file, and it'll then record anything that's not using indexes or any queries that are longer than a second or 2 seconds, whatever you like. And then you can use the Percona toolkit to analyze that, and it gives you like a hierarchical table of where your biggest problems are. Also, it's sort of a big frowned upon thing to do custom database queries in WordPress, but I would suggest to consider it, not necessarily do it. The way that I've solved these problems, I don't do custom queries. I'm actually modifying things slightly differently, but and it's all WordPress friendly. But also, if you can do a query in the database, do it. So, like an example would be if you have a whole bunch of products in your shop and you want to say, I don't know, like say you got 50,000 Adidas shoes and you got 90,000 Nike shoes, then you really want to get the database to be telling you that count rather than counting it in PHP, which I've seen some code do. And obviously test it on large stores. The fact is, if you search on the internet for how far WooCommerce will scale, there's loads of people out there telling you that you can't get it past 5,000 products. But well, it's not true, you can. You just need to tweak some things. But if you're making a plugin, please test it on a large site. You can fake the data in order to do this. And we can change this impression of WordPress not scaling. That's my mission, is to make WordPress incredibly fast for everybody. This is my WPI logo. So I've made a plugin that solves these WooCommerce problems, and also solves the custom post type performance problems, like the ones I did for Homes Abroad. So that's available if you want to check out on my website. So the Homes Abroad guys, they were, you saw how fast that was. They were getting 40+ second page loads before I fixed their code. So summary is that WooCommerce and WordPress do scale. If you want to check out these two sites that were in the video, you can check them out and see for yourself. Stage.la Design Concept Sync, that's not obviously going to be their final URL, they're not live yet. Homesabroad.net, they are live. And you can find nice homes in Spain while you're at it. And my website, WP Intense, and Anna mentioned Affiliate Web Designers. I just built this today, so forgive me for how ugly it looks. I wanted to get it in place before I came here. But also you can find me on Twitter and Skype, just Dave Hilditch. If you have any questions.
Thank you so much, David.
Questions later?
That was really cool. We can do questions.
I'm happy if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, we've got some time for some questions. 3 to 4, kind of 5 minutes. 3, 4, 5 minutes for questions. Do we have some questions for David?
Yeah.
Wonderful. We're just going to get a mic right to you.
Hi, David. I had a similar problem in the past, and the way I fixed it was to use MongoDB or non-SQL database. Have you tried this solution with a WordPress site?
I haven't used MongoDB in WordPress. I do know of MongoDB. I've used it for other things. What I've used it for is I do a little bit of Python coding on the side for scraping websites. So it's a good way of getting hold of lots of data, and I've stored that kind of stuff in MongoDB. It is a good option. I agree with you. This solution is focused on not changing any of the underlying table structure of WordPress. It does add indexes to your tables. So if you have a host that doesn't let you add indexes, then it's not going to work. But I think most hosts are going to let you. If you use DigitalOcean, you definitely can. MongoDB is a good option. But this works with it out the box, So any existing WooCommerce site can use it.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thanks for the answer, David. We have time for a few more questions, or as David said, we've got one right at the back. Perfect.
So do you use the persistent object caching in WordPress, linking in with Memcache or Redis?
I used to use that, right? With HHVM, I used to use Memcached and APC, but now with PHP 7, it's got the built-in opcode caching, and it really negates the need for it.
Cool. Cool. Nice and short answer there. We like those. Nice. Thank you, David. Thank you for the question at the back. We have time for one more question. If we don't have. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I thought you were like cut. Stop.
Thank you. So I work at VAP and we have a lot of issues sometimes with queries, and some things you want to do are inherently expensive no matter how you do them. And one of the solutions we do sometimes is use Elasticsearch, and we have an Elasticsearch cluster which can help with certain complex queries, especially if you're trying to do something with, say, like 5 different conditions that you're doing. Have you ever experimented with that, and do you think that's something that would be particularly effective here, or would it?
I haven't used Elasticsearch. I got a very good friend of mine, James Addison, who is a big fan of Elasticsearch. So I know of it. I've done a bit of research into it. But yeah, I mean, like, this isn't using anything other than the actual WordPress tables. So yeah, I mean, there are other ways to solve this problem. I would challenge you though, if you've got those queries that you're saying that there's no way to fix them, please send them to me, because I'll probably be able to fix them. So please send them to me, and I'll do it for you, man. No worries.
We'll have a conversation in a minute.
Thank you again. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, David. We've got time for a couple more questions, which if David is happy to answer them.
No, I've changed my mind. I don't want to.
If not, then another question. Should I just pick on someone for the
There's
audience?
one over here.
No,
One over
that's
here.
awful. Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go.
So, in your experience, what is the worst performing part of WordPress?
There's some bad stuff I've seen there. I don't really want to slag off some plugins, but there's one plugin I found that was loading all of the posts from your WordPress site into PHP and then running through all of them. And this was happening on every single page. So once you're over 1,000 posts or products, then you're screwed for performance and scalability. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, like if you use something like the Google PageSpeed to check your performance, then they focus on things like the front end performance, so like non-blocking JavaScript and all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of themes fall foul of that kind of thing. To me, it's not as a major of a problem because it doesn't affect scalability. You know, it doesn't stop you having thousands of simultaneous users on your site. It might mean it's like half a second slower for that user, which isn't great, but it's not as big a problem as table scans is really the biggest problem. So yeah, so any plugins that are causing table scans to happen. And a table scan, if I didn't explain it, is where it reads everything in your database, and it doesn't need to.